The Great Runes are the most important items in Elden Ring, essential to the story, mandatory to complete the game. The entire journey of the Tarnished begins with a singular goal: to claim at least 2 of them. But here's the strange part: for something so crucial, so central to the fate of the lands between, we barely understand what they actually are. You have been told that the Great Runes granted power to the demigods, that they warred against each other to acquire the Great Runes. But when you acquire those Great Runes and read their description, it becomes even more puzzling. Each Great Rune, each shard of the Elden Ring, inherited power from its respective shard bearer. There is a paradox here. Did the runes grant power to the demigods, or did the demigods grant power to the runes? This is what I call the paradox of Great Runes. And understanding this paradox is crucial to understand the nature of the Great Runes as well as the Mending Runes. When I explain this nature, understanding the Primordial Nightlord's rune becomes much easier, which is the newest addition to the Great Runes, despite the game insisting on not calling it a Great Rune. There is a mystery there that we must solve. So let me take you on a journey in the lands between with me, the alchemist, to try and decipher the paradox of Great Runes. When Queen Marika shattered the Elden Ring, some of its runes scattered and her children acquired them. Each demigod acquired a Great Rune and they became known as the Shard Bearers. Those scattered runes were 9 in total, 7 found in the base game, 1 in Shadow of the Erdtree, and 1 was only mentioned, which is the Rune of Rani. Those Great Runes seemingly gave power to the demigods to the extent that it tainted them. The intro cinematic states that the mad taint of their newfound strength triggered the Shattering War. To understand the Great Runes, we must first understand the nature of the Elden Ring itself. The Elden Ring is a reality-altering artifact that governs the laws of the lands between. You can think of it like the Infinity Gauntlet from the Marvel Universe, an artifact that allows you to change the universe as you see fit. It shapes the world according to your vision, your desire, and the Great Runes are the Infinity Stones. To remove a Great Rune from the Elden Ring is to erase the very concept it embodies from existence. That's exactly what Marika did when she blocked destined death from the Golden Order upon its creation. She sealed death by removing its rune from the Elden Ring and sealing it. So what about the shards we find in the game? How do they fit with this whole get what you wish for reality-altering shenanigans? Well, they act exactly the same. Those Great Runes react to the powers and desires of the demigods. They take your powers and amplify it. But not just your powers, they take your deepest desires and manifest it into reality. This fact can be easily understood by analyzing the description of those Great Runes. I want to start with Radahn's Great Rune as it's really interesting. This Great Rune raises max HP, FP, and stamina. But the interesting part is the following. The Great Rune burns to resist the encroachment of the Scarlet Rot. This line here can explain how the Great Runes work. This line proves that the Great Runes doesn't come with any inherent powers except its reality-altering potential. They react to your deepest desire and manifest them into reality. When Radahn first acquired his Great Rune, it didn't burn as he wasn't afflicted with Scarlet Rot yet. At that time, Radahn's sole purpose was to truly be the strongest of the demigods. I believe that's why the Great Rune increases max HP, FP, and stamina. I also believe that's why Radahn got so huge compared to the other demigods. His rune was reacting to his desire to be the strongest of the demigods. We can see in the intro cinematic how Morgoth was able to pin down a much smaller Radahn. But when he got afflicted with scarlet rot, his sole desire changed. His sole desire now was to resist the scarlet rot, and we know that the only thing that can hold rot is fire. And so his great rune reacted to his new desire and started to burn to resist the rot. This dynamic between the great runes and the desires of its bearer can be found in every single great rune. Since we were talking about Radon, let's look at Melania's great rune. Melania was the daughter of a single god, and her great rune should have been the purest, the most sacred of them all. But it wasn't. Her rune was rotted, tainted from the very beginning, just like her body. For her entire life, Melania fought the scarlet rot eating her from within. She tried everything. She sought the blind swordsman who sealed rot itself, and he taught her how to resist, but it wasn't enough. She sought Mikula's help and used his needle to keep rot at bay, but again, it wasn't enough. Yet she never stopped. Her spirit was never broken, and so her great rune reacted. Despite being rotted itself, the great rune manifested Melania's spirit of resistance into reality. And every time she resisted and attacked, her great rune restored some of her life force. Melania's will and desire to resist the scarlet rot, her will to live, became a reality. When we mention Melania, we need to mention her twin brother Mikula. And Mikula's great rune is perhaps the most interesting out of all of them, from both gameplay and lore perspectives. Mikula's great rune illustrates how dangerous and powerful a great rune can actually become. Mikula's sole desire in life was to embrace everyone. He wanted an age of compassion, a world where people would cease fighting and accept each other. He couldn't do it though, and so he learned to compel affliction. The bewitching branch is a tree branch blessed with an incantation. It talks about how Mikula learned to compel affliction. And so, when Mikula acquired his great rune, it reacted to his deepest desire. The great rune turned his desire to compel affliction into a reality. It allowed him to cast a worldwide charm that would turn even the worst of enemies into friends. We literally saw that in Shadow of the Earth Tree. As Leda said, Mikula's charm was the sole reason that his followers weren't at each other's throats. And you know very well what happened when Mikula broke his great rune. The charm was lifted and his followers started to kill each other. After that, Mikula retained some of his charming powers that he tried to use on us during our fight. We don't really know how he retained that power. Was it a spell like the one he used to make the bewitching branch, or was it something else? If I had to guess, I would say it was due to his newly ascended form. Mikula was a god at that point. What's really interesting regarding this is a description of Marika's rune. It states that the brilliance of Queen Marika's grace blinds even the very best. To me, this implies that Marika had charming powers of her own. It implies that godhood itself can charm people. Now, after explaining the nature of the great runes, we can explain the rest of them really quickly. Godric was a pushover, a distant relative to Marika, not one of her offspring. And so, his sole desire was to be on par with the other demigods. He practiced grafting to strengthen himself. Feeling his sole desire, his great rune reacted and it raised all of his stats. While Morgoth was the true lord of Leyndell. After being abandoned for ages, he wanted to prove everyone wrong and prove that he is a part of the Golden Order. His sole purpose was to defend Leyndell from invaders and from the Tarnished. He needed to withstand assault after assault to accomplish that. And so his great rune reacted, and it raised his maximum HP to the utmost so he can withstand assaults. For his twin brother Mohg, it was the absolute opposite. Mohg hated those who abandoned him. He hated the Golden Order and everything it stands for. Mohg's sole desire was to embrace his cursed blood. The rune reads as follows: Mohg and Morgoth are twin brothers, and their great runes are naturally similar, but Mohg's rune is soaked in accursed blood from his devout love for the wretched mire that he was born into, far below the earth. The great rune of Rykard states that he fed himself to the blasphemous serpent, great rune and all. We know that the serpent grew stronger every time he devoured something, and that was the desire of Rykard, to grow so strong that he can devour the very gods. And so his great rune reacted, and it restored his life force upon defeating enemies. As we can see now, the great runes take your deepest desire and turn it into reality. But what about the other way around? Now, after establishing that the great runes can manifest your desires into reality, what about the other way around? What if your thoughts and desires could manifest a rune into reality? But those runes aren't called great runes, they are called Mending Runes. It's common knowledge at this point that Elden Ring is heavily based on alchemy. The main character of the game, Queen Marika, is a divine rebus, a union between the Red King and the White Queen. And alchemy is a hermetic art, the spiritual science of transmutation. But it's not just about turning lead into gold, it's about turning idea into form, thought into matter. According to Hermeticism, the universe itself is mental. The divine mind, the all, dreams the cosmos into being, which means that your thoughts are not trapped inside your skull, they ripple outward, they shape your world. One of the 7 principles of Hermeticism is as above, so below. And if you follow this line far enough, you get a Mending Rune. Because a Mending Rune is not just an object, it's the crystallization of a belief, a complete ideology so fully formed that it becomes a metaphysical law. This is exactly what happens in Elden Ring, because each of the 3 Mending Runes you can acquire isn't just a gameplay item, it's a vision, a cosmic ideology made manifest. Fia wanted those who live in death to be incorporated into order. The Dung Eater understood the pain of the omen and decided that the only way to fix it is to change everyone into an omen. But unlike the Dung Eater who was fed the seedbed curse, or Fia who laid down with Godwyn to gestate the runes, the noble Gold Mask truly proves that you need only your thoughts to manifest a Mending Rune into reality. His rune speaks of his transcendental ideology and how it will attempt to fix the Golden Order. Gold Mask didn't collect anything, he only learned the truth. And when he understood this truth, he formed an ideology. This ideology manifested into a reality, into a Mending Rune. In the end, the Elden Ring is not just something you restore, it's something you rewrite. With your will, with your vision, with your rune. Now let's talk about the newest addition to our arsenal of runes, the Primordial Nightlord's Rune. The Nightlord's Rune is the newest addition to our arsenal of runes, but what do we call it? The description states that it's a thing with the properties of a great rune harbored by the Primordial Nightlord. So the rune works in a similar matter to a great rune, but it's not one. So what is it? The word harbored here is very important. To harbor is to keep a thought or a feeling, typically a negative one, in one's mind. But what feeling did the Nightlord keep? What did he truly desire? The Knight of the Lord Relic can answer this question. The country lay in ruin. The man who once was knight had challenged the hero, but he too was no match. He fell, just another body in a great pile, but eventually he awoke, crawling out from underneath the others. Though he had failed to protect anything or anyone, he yet lived. And so he cursed the world. It was the dead of night, and from the sky poured down a great rain. When the Nightlord awoke from the dead, this was the moment when the night reign started, and since we know that the Nightlord's rune is the source of his powers, we can conclude that the rune appeared into existence when he awoke. Now, putting those two descriptions together, we can understand what the Nightlord harbored. He felt shame, weakness, and failure. He wanted revenge. He wanted justice, and so he envisioned a world where everyone would be treated equally, a world where he punished those who caused his suffering. And as we already established, your thoughts and ideology could manifest a rune into existence. That's how the Primordial Nightlord's rune came to existence. But as we said, this is exclusive to the Mending Runes, not the Great Runes. The Great Runes work in the opposite way. So how did the Nightlord's rune become so strong? How did it affect the entirety of the lands between? I mean, even the strongest Great Rune, which is Mikula's Great Rune, only affected the Land of Shadow and his followers. The only way to impose your vision on the entirety of the lands between is to use your Mending Rune on the Elden Ring. And so, I started to play a little with the Nightlord's rune icon. Now take this with a grain of salt, as I don't have a hard proof except for visual imagery and deduction. But I believe the Nightlord's rune was a Mending Rune that fused with the Elden Ring. Take a look at this. This is the Nightlord's rune when we remove the upper circle. And we saw this shape here many times. We saw it at the top of the Elden Ring. We saw it on Marika's rune and Sword Seal. And we even saw it at the Gate of Divinity. This is Marika's rune. This is what I like to call Marika's Rune of Life. Now, why did FromSoft incorporate this very familiar symbol into the Nightlord's rune? Now, take a look at the Nightlord's rune without the circle side by side to the Elden Ring without the Great Runes. I would say this looks very similar. I believe the Nightlord's rune was fused with the broken remnants of the Elden Ring, an Elden Ring that got its Great Runes ripped from it. This would explain how the Nightlord was able to impose his vision on the entirety of the lands between. It will also explain why FromSoft designed Hulstor to invoke Radagon, to remind you of him. Hulstor is the only character beside Radagon that houses a visible rune inside of him. I believe this deliberate design choice was used to communicate that the Nightlord's rune isn't just a normal rune. It's fused with the remnants of the Elden Ring, and Hulstor was now its vessel. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button and tell me in the comments what you think. Until next video, farewell, fellow Tarnished.